Hey, folks, welcome to the Generational Gap. I am Robert, your resident. What am I? Gen X. Yes, Gen Xer. I almost said boomer. I can't believe it, but I almost said boomer. It would have been funny. Anyway,
And
John,
more accurate.
and right over here we got John, our
Me.
resident millennial. John, the millennial. John, how are you doing this evening?
Super duper, extra awesomelicious with, I don't know, like a cherry and some whipped cream on top. I think that's how I'm doing right now.
That is absolutely fake. I can tell that
Damn it.
you're faking your answer.
Damn it.
This anytime you go into that much, you know,
Yeah.
description, you're tired. You look tired. Your
I'm
sunglasses are
tired.
sagging.
Yeah.
Actually, they're not really sagging. They're kind of propped up under the bags under your eyes. So, has it been a pretty rigid watch schedule there at your location, fending off the rioters and stuff? Is that what it is? The
Yeah,
COVID, the
I
COVID
had to take a break
zombies.
from I had to take a break from battle in order to come in here. I had to try and, get as much of the blood off me as I could, but
Yeah, I mean, between rioters and COVID zombies, it's like, what do you
yeah,
do,
there's
right?
just no end.
Somebody's got to be
Yeah,
on watch, taking that lookout post up top. I see we got an
absolutely.
elephant man hanging in there in the chat. I hope he's wearing a mask because nobody wants to see an elephant man. So I remember what that kid looked like, and it was kind of rough. Much love to you. I don't think it's. I think you just chose the name, so I'm good.
It's not the
Um,
you don't think that's the real elephant
I don't
man?
think it has any. I don't think it's the real Elephant Man, nor do I necessarily think it has to do with the actual Elephant Man. I'm leaning to it might have something to do with actual elephants. I might.
Oh, I wonder, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's trying to. I think he's just trying to represent that he's got a large penis. I think that's what it's coming down to. You
Oh,
know how guys are some guys can be very good at kind of wrapping in that like the super subtle innuendo. You know,
no.
yeah, it's a way of asserting dominance, but not overtly. You know, so that's or either that or he just really loves the zoo. Maybe he likes the zoo.
He's just an elephant trainer,
Yeah,
man.
he got circus fan, right?
Yeah, you
Hold
got
on,
it.
you can't
So,
say you got it. We threw
I
out like
know,
eight
like,
options.
right. Is it all of them?
I mean,
I
I'm
suppose it's
guessing
all of
that was
them.
in response to the into the asserting dominance through the subliminal messaging. I don't know. Try it, John. Try it sometime. I mean, it's a it's one of these things like through usernames and things like this. This is and now I'll just put it out there. This kind of goes back to old school psychology.
Hmm.
When all you were in a chat room was your chat name, and
Right.
you were coming, you were
Synonymous nature of the
yeah,
internet.
yeah. So there had to be a little bit of psychology that would go into play when you were making a name if you really wanted to say something without, like I said, being too overt, putting it all out there. I see Ron Helton has rolled in over at D Live.
Oh,
Um,
snap.
I still try and make out what he's posting in those emojis, but being that it's just on my OBS screen, it's not
Yeah.
really big enough. I can't really zoom into them.
Well, he's got the AOC crazy eyes, and he's got Greta Thunberg going, "How dare you?
Oh, it's so great
How
that you
dare
you
you?"
mentioned AOC. So I'm just going to put out there. You like to Netflix and chill sometimes, right?
Yeah, I
Um,
guess.
they've got a new show out, a new Netflix series called Space Force.
I saw that. I
Have
watched
you
the entire
watched
first
it?
season. Yeah.
Do you like their little AOC kind of gal that they've
I
built in
thought it
there?
was I thought it was funny, but at the same time it was like, you know,
She's
it
kind of cringeworthy.
oh no, it definitely made her try to look good. Like they were definitely going at her in a positive light.
Um,
So I thought that was pretty
in a
funny.
positive light, I don't.
Yeah, for sure. Well, because
Uh,
she was the only one that was asking him difficult questions, right? The rest of them were,
well, that's
tossing
what.
softballs, and then she's like,
Yeah, but
how
AOC.
does this, the cost affect my constituents? It's like she doesn't give a fuck about cost for one thing.
Well,
Like she
yes
would
and
never ask
no.
how much something costs because it doesn't matter.
Well,
Like,
see, I've seen AOC like as that type of person that asks very you know very serious questions, but it's 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 done in such an obtuse way, kind of like they open the door for you to not be able to answer it with a yes or no.
Yeah.
you know how it's how it gets they get all reverse psychology on you and all sorts of stupid shit trying to draw answers out of you as opposed to just asking you a very straightforward question
Right.
that denotes a straightforward answer. I mean, when you see and then like major major hearing committee hearings and things, um, it tends to get better, but I think when you're just when too many of them are out there talking, they just all try and fucking bullshit their way, get you to just to
Yeah.
get you to fucking bait you to fuck up, as it were.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, you didn't answer the question. Yeah, well, you didn't really ask the question, did you? Did you give me something? I mean,
Yeah.
there's something to be said for lobbing a softball and throwing a fastball.
Right.
Because if you're just like throwing it into foul territory before you even get it across the plate, you're
You're
that's
gonna
just a
walk
wild
them.
pitch.
Yeah.
That's just a wild pitch, bitch.
Yeah.
I mean, but no, I thought I've kind of enjoyed it. I don't know if I don't know if I love Steve Carell's character.
Really?
I don't know what I'm losing there. Like because I'm used to him from The Office. I see Eliza lurking in from Australia. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I loved him in The Office, and I guess I'm trying to get
Hmm.
past that part where we self typecast people.
Well, yeah,
Or
he's basically the same character as Michael from The Office, but he's
yeah,
toned down a bit though.
right. He's really I guess I do see he does do a good job of pulling off that struggle where he wants to be the 4-star general, but he's very just can't quite make it sometimes, but then other times he has his successes, etc. But I
Yeah.
guess there's a
Well,
part of me
everything
that's
does
looking
seem to
for
work
more.
out.
Yeah, I'm looking for more of that Michael, and I have to tell myself constantly not to expect that from him
Well,
because
because
this
what they
is
did
different.
was they cut out his incompetency. So he's actually like really good at his job. It's just that he's kind of like quirky outside of his job,
Well, let me ask you
you know.
this: do you know who? I can't remember who was it that they put in charge of Space Force, the real Space Force?
I don't remember. I don't know.
Because I don't know if it was a 4-star general. I'm assuming if it's its own branch, they have someone top tier at the head. But
Well, the 4-star general is the highest rank you can achieve during peacetime.
yeah, do you think
5-star general only comes during wartime.
right? Do you think do you think that they would? I was trying to figure out if they would have patterned him, or if it's just the satellite characters that are patterned, maybe patterned off specific people. Because yeah, I mean, come on, it's definitely AOC. They couldn't
Oh,
have like
that was the
targeted
only time
AOC.
though, I think. Yeah, that was
Is
the only
that the
time
only
though.
one?
I think so, yeah.
I haven't gone to links to look at some of these, like see if like the senators that visited, if they were branded off anybody. I see
I
Sawson
don't
in
think
there.
so.
Yeah.
Sasson and Eliza, yeah, are lurking Australian is here.
But if you have
Badass.
Netflix and you get an opportunity, go ahead and watch Space Force.
There is a little bit of like I do recommend the show. It's kind of cute and fun, but yeah, there's definitely some of that intersectional feminism in there.
yeah, there's a little,
It's
yeah,
not like overwhelming, but it
right.
is kind of cringy when it happens.
It's nowhere near what I described to you about the shows on the CW and DC Comics,
Right,
right?
right.
Which like as I've told you, love those shows, but there's so much virtue signaling. There's so much agenda in the later shows that they've been bringing in, and now you can look at their lineup of DC characters and you can go, oh,
Yeah.
okay, what stands out here when you look at it. But so I know you saw the topic of the show, or you saw the title of the show,
Hmm.
and you may be kind of, I don't know if you've wondered what I'm wanting to talk about a little bit tonight. But you and I off mic had a conversation about propaganda, the propaganda war that's being fought between the far left and the far right, and
Hmm.
and varying spectrums in between are also a part of this propaganda war in their own ways,
I
shape,
mean,
and
I would
form.
phrase it as more propaganda that's like a propaganda war between authoritarian and non-authoritarian. That
Um,
doesn't necessarily mean libertarian if you're on the non-authoritarian side. That's
right.
obviously a spectrum as well.
So you don't think you could definitely call it the left and the right in this propaganda when we talk about whenever I talk to you about the left using the mainstream media, whereas the
Right.
right is using memology as a way now to, in my opinion, really move a lot more propaganda.
Um, I mean, because it's not just the right that uses memes. They're just more
Oh, I get
successful
it.
at
I
it.
get it. That's why,
Yeah.
and that's why I
So
explained.
again,
Yeah.
I think it's kind of at this point at least it's become kind of authoritarian versus non-authoritarian.
Okay. So
And so like yes, most of the left falls under authoritarian, not always, but most of the left does fall under authoritarian
um,
and most of the right, but although not always, right? Because there's some very authoritarian right-wing people too.
well,
So you
that's
can't just say
right.
it's, a propaganda war between left and right because those sides don't even agree with themselves a lot of
Right.
the time, let alone with each other. So
So do you think it
I
comes
think it
down
is
to
more
more
authoritarian versus
authority?
none.
Okay, so what so that inherently is telling me that there's a possibility that there's a lot more right and left wing people that are thinking similarly. So I
Yeah,
guess if we're looking at that circular, that
the horseshoe theory
unclosed
is
circle, the horseshoe, yeah,
the horseshoe theory. Yeah.
that those people are a lot closer and they're thinking about
Well, yeah,
authoritarianism. My tongue got tangled.
yeah. I mean, the thing about like this, the radically far left and the radically far right, is
Right.
that they agree on things like segregation. Both sides want to segregate the races.
It's just the
It's
reasoning behind it.
the reasoning behind it might be slightly different,
Right.
but it's really not. It's just the rhetoric is different. The way that the angle that they come at it from is different. But other than that, it's the same thing.
Well, now I would disagree with that because I think from the standpoint of just that for instance, I mean I see one side as wanting to prop it up versus the other side that would rather just remove it from the picture completely by
What do you
going to the
mean?
source, like the far right extremists that
Hmm.
are and I started talking. You had to look at things like white supremacy and things like this. Um, you know, they would rather that part of the picture just be removed. Not in our communities, not around us. The full segregation, like to where they don't even have to deal with them, see them,
Yeah,
anything. They're
well, that's
that's
what I'm saying. Both sides
Whereas
want
the
that.
others want segregation through propping up the groups and individualizing the groups and ranking importance.
Well,
So
no, they want to segregate the races as in having like, here's a black only space or here's a
sure,
Latino only space,
sure.
which
And
means that no one else is allowed to go in there. That's segregating yourself still.
however, I think that far extreme left also, prioritizes the race of the month too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
I'm
yeah,
not
and
gonna
that's
lie.
that's the
I,
only real difference between the extremely far right, the actual like white supremacists, Nazis, whatever you want to call them, those the actual like 12 that are out there, and then the radically far left. The biggest difference is one side is pro-white only, the other one is like anti-white, pro everything but whiteness, like white people.
right.
So that's the only difference is just what side they're fighting for, but they want the same thing just for their own group and not the other one.
Yeah, it's because that's ultimately, all I know is that they have a lot of similarities, but there's no way they could agree on the methods by which you reach your end goals.
Um,
I don't think so.
I mean, if the super far right, like the actual far right, I'm not. I keep saying that just because I want to clarify. I'm not talking about what the media would call the far right, which
No,
is anyone.
that's why I use the term extreme. The
That's
extreme
fine.
right
Yeah,
and the extreme left. Not extremist, but the extreme right, the extreme
right.
left.
Extreme
There's
ends of the spectrums. Yeah. Anyway, I was saying something about what was it? Oh, fuck.
that
You
you don't
fucked me
think
up.
the far right and
Oh,
by
if they had more numbers, I think, and they had obviously the media behind them, I think then they would be a lot more like the left in methodology at least.
so, it's
But they don't. There's like I said, there's like 12 of them, and everyone hates them.
well,
So like they're not gonna get. any kind of real traction, unlike the extreme left, which has the media in its pocket, are at their back at least. They don't. There's almost no accountability when it comes to them causing violence and
Right.
whatnot. And all the TV,
Sure.
movies, all that shit is all pumping their propaganda out.
Right.
That's
And
why they're able to be as brazen as they are.
and I think that gives is a lot of the impetus behind, while the the extreme right is a very small percentage of the right.
Right.
Um,
Extremely small, like
freedom of
insignificant.
freedom of speech, and while I don't want it to go away, I'm just saying freedom of speech allows the left to paint a larger spectrum of the right as thinking like that small
Yeah.
portion, right?
Hmm.
That just blame them all. Now, there is a point that they get to as they're swinging that pendulum left, where they stop. A lot of them will stop with the how much white privilege needs to be removed mindset mentality. Um, but I don't like the way that it gets painted, because it is absolutely. I mean, the left is one of the extreme left is one of the most racist groups I can think of. In all of their pandering, in all of their judgment, in all of their ranking and distorting, um, they literally promote more racism than they
Yeah.
could ever get rid of. And I'll give you an example of this. And I'm going to read something to you. I'm not going to tell you who it's from or anything like that. I'm just going to read it to you, and I want to get your thoughts on it.
Okay.
All right. So it says, if you can benefit from affirmative action, have every major institution support you, receive discounts and special treatment because of your skin color, get a free pass to burn down cities and loot, and get bailed out of jail by celebrities, you're not oppressed, you're privileged. Now, what, as a libertarian, what do you say about that? And then I guess I
What
would
do I
have to
say
ask you,
about
what do you
that?
say as a person?
I
I
would
mean,
say that's true. I mean, that is a true statement.
like, you would agree with that person, is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
If you, yeah,
I
that's
agree
the
with
definition of privilege.
I agree with a lot of that. Uh, and that was Caitlin Bennett posted that.
Yeah, I
And
mean
I'm
that's
like,
fair.
I found myself reading that, and I'm like, okay, I see the, I guess I'm just going to use this
Yeah,
word loosely. I see the justice in that statement.
yeah,
That is, and that's what I've been talking about. There's opportunity there. And
right.
I'm tired of being blamed or lumped into a group of blame because those opportunities are not taken. And when the means to protect yourself from those opportunities being withheld from you is there also, you've got the vehicle to make sure that those opportunities are based on merit, are based on
Hmm.
you as a person. It's there. How much more privilege do you need? Because I still can't get behind this idea that the privilege should be a helping hand that reaches down, scoops you up, lifts you out, and puts you in a better place.
Yeah.
But now I do agree that there are places where corruption is used to to in oppressive ways in communities. Do I
Hmm.
think I will not agree that it's always 100% directed at one group, but I will say that you can't get around the fact that there are places in this country where racism does still live, where that idea of segregation, the mindset is leans more towards that extreme end of the right spectrum in a lot of places. Elephant Man
I
says it.
mean, yeah, it definitely exists, but the point is to get rid of systemic racism. You can't
Right.
legislate someone's thoughts.
Well, I understand. I understand that, and getting rid of systemic racism, that is more to the point of what I'm saying about that mindset. So
Hmm.
someone can literally live in those communities and not believe that they are, following that mindset that's been established in the culture of that area, but their actions don't belie what they think they're doing.
Mm,
I mean, they're allowing actions to happen or they're approving actions to happen without realizing that some of that brainwashed mentality is still, living in there, subconsciously coming out in the decisions they're making, because cultural impact, it takes a long time for it to really go out of it. I mean, I was shocked whenever I was younger in Georgia and realized there were places where they were still burning crosses on people's yards. And
mm,
that was happening in my lifetime, 20 years after the race riots, and and so so what you're telling me is that these fixers don't work, because that's when I realized we're all racist as a species. That's an inherent part of our species, just like you see it in any other animal species, birds, whatever.
right.
They're often species are very racially motivated between different subsets of the species. It is what it is. Why would we be any different? We do so much more, so many other things that are based on animal instinct, in my opinion. So
Yeah,
that's
of
just one
course.
of those things where our territorial nature comes out, our protective nature
Yeah,
comes out, because there are inherent differences in the cultures.
yeah. It's called in-group preference. That's what
Sure.
you're describing there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that is, and I'm gonna guess that that's probably a libertarian ideal that would be upheld, right? That would be
What?
that would be an accepted train of thought in a libertarian mindset. Is that correct?
What would be?
That's allowed.
Um, I mean, it depends on how far down you go with, uh, do we still have like the Civil Rights Act? Do we still have that
Oh,
sort of
that's
thing?
true.
You know what I mean? Like
Yes,
where you
to
can do
where,
that
yeah,
because
to where
it would be up to each state
well,
to
in
decide whether that's acceptable or not.
in my opinion, from my standpoint of libertarianism, I would say yes. We would be. It would be a post. Excuse me, a pre. You can't say pre Civil Rights Act, but
Right.
yeah, they would have to be taken out. They would. It would have to be.
So
There would
then,
just
yeah,
have
it
to be
would
an
be
understanding in this country that you're equal.
it would be up to the states at that point to decide that for themselves. Um, but other than that, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it would be theoretically allowed.
Self separation is going to happen.
Yeah.
It's shown that it happens now. We see it all the time. I mean, show me where it doesn't happen. There's a
Oh
Chinatown
yeah.
in almost every major city. There's, New York is a perfect example. I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah.
supposed
They
to be a
have.
big melting pot, but there's really only about 1 mile distance where it's a big melting pot, and even that gets kind of broken up
Oh,
into.
hey, real quick. Sully Blue donated a diamond. Thank you, man.
Nice, Sully. It's good to see you
Awesome.
tonight,
He's
showing up. So,
He put a message under there saying a girl's best friend. That's funny.
nice.
Diamond. Yeah.
Elephant Man says if it weren't for the rise, most libertarians would be out there with the protesters. I could potentially see
Yeah.
that.
Absolutely. Because I mean, I've not found. Apparently, there are people who've defended that cop, but I've not found any. Like on no matter what part of the spectrum they're on, this has been a very uniting thing for most people, and then the writers fucked it up.
Yeah. Um, yeah, there was a lot of good to be gained from these protests, but I could tell you, I knew from the very beginning, you know, sadly, because it's the LA riots. After the LA,
Yeah.
after what happened to Rodney King, seeing this happen with George Floyd, it was on the wind. You could smell it.
Yeah.
As soon as it was said there was going to be a protest,
Oh yeah.
I just saw it coming. I just saw it coming. Did I think it would? Did I ever imagine it would spread across the country like this?
Yeah. I
No,
didn't think that would happen.
no.
Yeah.
Um,
But people have been cooped up for the past few months. They want to get out, burn off some of that energy.
yeah. Eliza says, oh, absolutely, those non-racists are the most racist. Thank you. I'm glad to see somebody. I'm curious, Eliza, if you're still there lurking around. Um, is it getting this? How much is it getting this way in Australia? Of course, I don't know. Does what the governmental setup is there? Is it supposed to be a democracy? What do you know, John?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean it's a democracy, I
It's a
think.
it's a democracy, but
I'm not
a
sure if it's like a.
non-constitutional democracy. Am I
I'm
correct?
not sure.
Right.
I'm not
I don't
sure.
know.
I mean, I know that they don't have like a king or anything dumb like that.
Not
Like,
that I mean, it's not that they're not. It's
although
not
they do
important
still
to
love the
know, but
queen down there, but
right.
yeah.
It's not that it's not important to know, but when it's all said and done, I mean, I would have time to learn if they ever sent ships against us. I'm just saying, it's going to take a while because they couldn't get we couldn't be much further away from them, could we?
What, Australia?
Yeah,
No, I don't think we can.
yeah.
If we get any further away, we'd start getting closer.
Elephant Man says, "You're right. Stop at the tip of my nose. Why are
That's
you letting them that close?"
right.
Sully says, "Your rights stop where mine are hindered. You have your rights, or as is everyone, not hard."
Yeah.
Yeah. See, but then when we talk about these racial divides that people would like to create, the segregation on both sides would like to create,
Yeah,
then you
parliamentary
start getting
system
into
like the
those
UK.
arguments about rights, right? What are my rights? What do I have the right to
Right.
do? Well, you don't have the right to do this. Well, why don't I? Other people have
Yeah.
the right to do this. Why don't I? You get in, and it's like, okay, you know, I wonder if that's what
Yeah.
makes politics so convoluted. But uh, I will say that there are questionable things going on without doubt, and they have arrested everybody involved with that now. Although I think they're using a body double for Chauvin. I don't know Chauvin. Um, the picture of him out there on the street, the hair doesn't line up with the mugshot that they posted when he was taken in. He's got a very defined widow's peak in the one shot of him on the street
Mm.
with George Floyd, and he doesn't have that in. Plus, the hair looks longer in the picture in the mugshot, basically saying, you don't
That he got a haircut in
you
prison.
don't cut out the widow's peak really if your hair is cut short. I don't know. It doesn't look like the same hairline across the front. I mean, there's a definite widow's peak on the image by the car, and then very straight across.
Yeah.
But it
Real
looks,
quick.
but you can see scalp through the one on the
Real
cop
quick. Do we
car.
want to bring Midget on? He's requesting.
Who?
Uh, yeah, he's requesting an audience with us.
An
Um,
audience.
he said he wants to talk about, like he said, propaganda is his thing, and he likes talking about
Oh, I
Australia.
don't. No, no, we weren't going to talk about Australia though. We got
All
because I have other questions in mind. Do, I don't.
right.
Hold on, I got to
We don't have
launch.
to let him on. It's fine.
No, no, no. Well, that link? Can you send it over to him? That's the link to the meeting. The
I'll
same.
try. But anyway,
But anyway, yeah. So,
keep going.
but ultimately, in looking at all this, of course, with me, it won't surprise you that you know the question of our weakness comes to my mind. You know, and especially now that others are picking up the propaganda flag out there. Not that they don't normally, but you know, you have China, you have Russia, you have Iran, and you have Turkey, all sitting around at the bar drinking a beer, having a good laugh at our expense. I mean, they've been talking amongst themselves about that. But Iran's carrying on as usual, getting its plutonium enriched. It's they're just full bells on a roll, doing their thing. Um, China is like, fuck you guys, we don't care. But one of the things I am seeing is propaganda from these countries where they're like China was doing a good job of it, posting things that we had said, our government had said about the protesters in Hong Kong and how humane they should be, China needs to be with their protesters and all of this, comparing it directly to how we're handling these protests and riots, because it's like, well, look at how you handle your rioters, America. What the fuck? You're surprised that we did, but basically it's a lot of these countries trying to call us out for how we're handling this. But what it ultimately comes to is I start to question, I'm like, well, you know how weak are we looking to the world as a whole, and the various factors that are potentially playing into that.
Hmm.
And if we need to focus more on these things instead of being so overwhelmingly distracted by this, you know, but how do you tell the people that are out there protesting and rioting that, right? But I mean, if you look at the organizations that we're pulling out of and we're retracting our association with in some way, shape, or form, we pulled out from the WHO, right? We're
Yeah.
we're we're lessening our presence in the
Good.
UN,
Good.
right? Well, hold on. Now, when I want you to bear in mind that when I'm thinking about this, I think about things that you've told me and you've
Mm-hmm.
said to me, and they come into question. Um, because ultimately, what we're not doing is we're not doing it very diplomatically, in my opinion. In
Yeah.
as we retract these relationships, I'm all for isolationism. Bring it on. Let's shut down borders. But I've always said it needs to be done diplomatically so that we can keep trade open, etc. And you said, you told me, I mean, one of the things that the rest of the world, these things that we do, they always generate power for us in the
Mm-hmm.
world. So, like being the biggest part of the UN, that was important from a physical presence standpoint.
Right.
Now, so if as we start to draw in most unceremoniously, is it a good sign to the world when we follow that up with this level of discord in the country? I mean, how much more of a weak player does that make us on the global
Uh.
scale?
Okay. Yeah. It makes us a less involved player, is what I would say. Um. I don't think it makes us weaker. I mean, especially if we withdraw from the UN. UN has so many fucking problems. We
Okay.
should probably do an episode on the UN one time, because that's about how long we would need. Um,
Okay.
so, I mean, I think it's a good thing we're pulling out of that anyway. First of all, it has no power to begin with, really. It's
Right.
more ceremonial than
Oh,
anything.
yeah.
Unless there's like a war, the
Right.
UN is useless.
Right.
Um,
And I mean,
and yeah, they do their little humanitarian shit, but there's like again, we'll get into those problems
I
another time.
understand
But
all the reasoning behind wanting to be, be a
right,
lesser part of
so
the
well,
UN.
that's what I'm saying. So since it's got no real power,
Sure.
why are we pumping? I mean, we're the number one contributors to the UN, if I'm not mistaken.
Well,
If we're not number one, we're up there.
okay.
So we can. That's money that we're pumping in for a
Sure.
useless organization. In
But
fact,
I
one
mean,
that does more harm than good.
he
We
has
need to get
even
out of that anyway.
sure he's posited pulling 100% out of the UN. I mean, that
Yeah,
has been tossed
good.
around in the past. I mean, it's
Hmm.
not like it's not a surprising move if he were to do it, right? But if that is one of the presences or one of the things that we do to prop ourselves up from the perspective of strength, does that not diminish our strength to the rest of the world? I mean, it's got to play into it.
I mean,
If
it
countries are bold
diminishes our
enough to not give a
influence.
shit what we say now, like,
Yeah, it diminishes our influence for sure. But why? Why does anyone need to care what we say?
um,
Unless we're, aggressing on us. Why do we?
is it
What does it matter what we say?
so? If it becomes easier to paint us in a negative light, then it does begin to have a trickle down effect on the relationships with countries that we are, for many of them, we're on tenuous ground with. I mean, Turkey is talking, having conversations about how fucked we are with China, Russia,
Mhm.
and Iran. They're supposed to be an ally of ours. So, are we losing Turkey as an ally?
I mean, probably, but that was tenuous for a long time. That's not something new.
if China keeps fucking around with India, and pissing India off, yet we're not willing to step in. And I understand, I get it, not wanting to
You
get
know
in other
who else
people's
is allied
wars.
with India?
Probably
The
Russia.
UK.
Oh,
The
the
UK.
UK? Yeah, well,
Yeah,
yeah,
let them handle it.
I get it.
Or if they ask us for help, I mean, we can.
Yeah, but do you think that India, that
Maybe.
well, I don't know if India wants to be beholding to the UK in that way. America's a much better ally to have, in my opinion. But if we're not there, if we're not our part of our
I don't
UN
know, dude.
presence,
With Brexit happening, the UK is looking for trading partners, and we'll probably give them a decent deal. If they help them and they become not just. I mean, I think they're both part of the UN. I
right?
believe, yeah, I believe India is part of the UN.
Hey,
But even without that, the UK is a good ally to have.
yeah. Um, as long as we can maintain our alliances with them, that you know. But I mean, I don't know.
Well, we buy a
I
lot,
I don't love the
so
way
we're
he's
we're also a
walking.
good ally to have for trade reasons. We buy a lot of shit.
Sure, sure, I get it. But
And
again,
especially if we
what
have
can
just cut ties with China, someone's got to fill that void.
but
Who's
isn't
it going to be?
it's about how we retract from our diplomatic
Yeah.
relationships, because look at it this way: if I'm a world leader and you piss me off as you pull back from me and want to
Hmm.
maintain trade, well, you've already shown me that your idea of hurting a country is to hit them in the fucking pocketbook.
Yeah.
So that would be
It's
my
better than bombing
response,
them.
right? So then now we start to see an impact that creates the impact on trade that I'm talking about. Diplomacy has got to work hand in hand with this,
Yeah.
and you can't
So
you can't just pull out of every accord you have around the world
no,
just on a
but
whim.
the thing is, for decades, this isn't something that Obama did. This isn't something Bush did. This is not something Clinton did. It's been a long time where we've just let countries kind of walk all over any agreements that we make, and we just kind of like, all right, well, we'll deal with that. We'll deal with that. We've been, really, really lenient on other countries not holding up their end of bargains. And I mean, a deal's a deal. It's on paper, it's a contract. If you don't follow that, then we're under no obligation to continue to hold up our end. So, and that's what he's been doing, is waiting for them to do something that violates the agreements, and then says, okay, well, we're pulling out.
Um,
And that puts pressure on the other country. Now they have to react. The ball's in their court. Are they going to shape up and hold up their end of the bargain, or are they going to
right.
just let it kind of split? And they're the ones getting the better end of the deal most of the time. So it's not in their interest to have the U.S. pull out of it.
Yeah. So Sully agrees with you that we need to pull out of the UN. Oh, by the way, I see RRC is in the chat. Good to see you
Oh
tonight,
yeah, what's
RRC.
up,
Hang
bro?
on, brother. But he says we're the largest contributor, of course. Hold their home base and get protection only to get shit on and do their job anyways. Um, and Elephant says trade relations depend on who has leverage. That's it. And I
Right, and by
understand,
us pulling out of these agreements, that gives us the leverage. That gives us the upper hand in
but
future
is it, are we
negotiations.
are we not balancing that out with so much unrest in this country? Unrest will always make a country weak in because of focus, where your focus gets pulled, especially if this were to get to an elevated level that bordered on those magic words that but
Yeah.
any kind of civil um, you know contention, as it were. I don't want to say anything that because the YouTube machine, right?
Right.
But yeah, civil contention between sides. Again, that's just a recipe for disaster from these countries that are taking this moment while we are so self-focused right now, um, to further their agendas, to to make us look stupid to the rest of the world with their propaganda, etc. And how he's acting is not like you know illegitimizing what they're saying in the propaganda is what it is. That's the part that bothers me, and I worry that it's going to have some real impact on our trade relations, especially in this time where the economy is taking a shit right now. The last thing we
Yeah.
need is to start having
But
countries take
fortunately,
advantage of that.
fortunately, so is everyone else's economy. So we're all kind of in the same boat
Yeah.
in that case, at least. Most, like not all of the countries, but at least the major ones, the big players.
Well.
Most of them are taking hits as well. Other than like there's quite a very few that aren't. Like what was it? Sweden?
Mhm.
Was it Sweden or
That
Switzerland
didn't do.
that didn't do any kind
It
of
was
lockdown?
Switzerland,
Nothing. Didn't
if
change
I'm
anything.
not mistaken. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
So
had.
But that probably still affects their trade. People might not be taking things from them. People might not be, selling to them, or they might not be buying because they don't
Right.
want to bring, contaminated stuff into the country.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't know enough about, what their policy or whatever on it, so I couldn't answer that. But
Yeah.
for
So,
the most part, everyone else's economy is crashing at the same time.
right. Um, well, I guess the a good question to answer, or I would like to get your opinion on is: do you think these sanctions that we put on countries, for instance, Iran, um, do they do they even matter? Do they work? So and if they do, would they not be detrimental to us in this economic situation we're in?
Um, I mean, obviously that depends on a number of factors, like which countries, what we're getting from them, what we're giving to them, how much of it. Um, and also it depends on how many countries are joining us in those sanctions. Because if it's just us, we're like, yeah, we're not gonna, like Cuba, right? For the longest time, you couldn't travel there, you couldn't buy Cuban products, you couldn't sell them American things, but no one else in the world did that. At least not, after a while. I think a few did at first, but when it was just us that were not, trading or dealing with Cuba at all, you could still Canadians were going on vacation over there and stimulating their economy. British people were going over there and stimulating their economy. That did nothing, right? Because no one else joined us.
Elephant asked the question: do you think our Blue Water Navy or Air Force are preoccupied with the protesters?
Yeah, they're really not.
I,
Um,
I would wonder, just exactly which parts of the military are on any kind of alert in regards to these situations. I mean, the Air
I
Force
mean,
would
the
probably
National
be
Guard for
tapped to
sure.
start hauling people around, you know, and
Well, no, I mean the Army has
do
planes
they?
for
Well, I
that.
guess they have plane. Do they
The
have
big,
full blown
yeah.
planes for within country
Yeah,
travel?
yeah, the Army has a massive Air Force. Like the Air
Yeah.
Force is a little bit redundant,
Mm,
honestly. Because the Navy has the actual best Air Force in the world, the
right.
Navy.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
I know the
yeah,
Navy's got to cover, but they need to
they
be out
actually have a
there.
better Air Force than the U.S. Air Force. Like, it's ridiculous. Um, and then of course the Army has their own. They have helicopters, and then they have the big cargo planes,
Um,
C-130s, I believe.
uh, all right. So Sully asked me how far did I run? Did I say
You
something
say
about?
something. You might have said something about running. I don't know.
Yeah, you won't see a lot of that from me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
his guts will fall out if he tries to run.
I do much better crawling on my belly.
Can
I can do a pretty decent low crawl.
you do the worm?
Hmm?
Can you do the worm?
Not anymore, not with my back.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna fuck my back up. Can't do that. Elephant Man says Navy has the second largest Air Force. Well,
The second
if
largest.
you count the Air Force as part of what it actually is, they have the biggest, don't they?
Yeah.
Because the Air Force was just an offshoot of the Navy, right?
No, I don't think so. I
Air
think it
Force.
was just
Hold
its
on.
own.
Air
I
Force
think it
is
was just no, because it was the Navy Air Force, and then it. So maybe
Yeah,
I
because
know that it's called the Navy Air Force.
The Marines were an
Well, the
offshoot of
Marines
the
are well,
Army.
yeah, they're under the Department of the Navy, but they are their own branch.
Wait, were the Marines the offshoot of the Navy and the Air
Yeah.
Force was an offshoot of the Army? Because I know that we originally had Army and Navy, and
Yeah.
then the two shot off, and one came from one side and one came from the other, and I get them confused
Yeah,
because
I honestly now you're making me question it now.
yeah. So if
Um,
anybody knows, or look it up, one of the two, put
yeah.
those excellent goggle skills to the test. Sully says he
Air
swears
Force is an offshoot of Army, says Elephant Man.
he says he's actually in
Okay, so it's
shape.
Army Air Force. My bad.
Sully says he's actually in shape. It may sound like a fat ass because he bought a 10 pack of tacos and have one taco and one burrito left. You know, you, I don't think you got a big. I mean, a 12 pack. You should just get the 12 pack. The 12 pack solves everything. and leave the burritos out. I don't like their burritos. But anyway, that's just me.
Yeah,
He says no. The Navy has best ground support Air Force. The Air Force, however, leads in high altitude surveillance and logistical planes.
that makes sense.
Air Force is an offshoot of Army. Okay,
Yeah, that's what I
that's
was
right.
saying. Yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
I
And
mentioned
the
that.
Marines were
Yeah, well, I knew that for a fact because
right.
Marines were originally like pretty much only on ships and meant to protect it from being boarded or to board enemy ships. That's what the Marines did
Gotcha.
for the longest time until they started getting involved in more ground engagements, and now they're like almost never on ships.
Um, so now maybe that we should do that sometime, John. We should
Yeah.
have you know uh, we should have a contest or a ranking, and we should get like everybody to vote because everybody has a difference of opinion about who the best outfit is in the military, right? Some people will say, "Oh, it's Navy SEALs." Other people will say,
Well, they're gonna
"Well,
pick whoever they
potentially."
whether they were in
Eh,
it or if
or
they knew someone who
which
was in it.
branches support the branch they support,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, I don't know if you
But
could even quantify which one's
it
the
would be nice to
best.
see. It would be nice to know from amongst our viewers. If we had a night where we had give viewership, we'll put the ask out there and see what people say. I
I
mean,
don't know. They all
you
do
never know.
different jobs. I don't know. I don't know if you can really
Sure,
quantify that.
but a badass is a badass is a badass. I don't care
Oh,
if
then
you
you're
put him in
talking
a
about like SEALs or
just
Delta.
right,
What's
but
it?
that group
I
would
think it's
be
what it's called.
significant. That group would identify
But
as the
even so,
branch that they come from.
you have like not Rangers, Green Berets who do something totally different than the other special forces guys. Like
They're
there's
part of the army, right?
right.
That's what I'm saying. So if you thought the Green Berets were the baddest asses, then you believe then
But
that
that's the
falls
thing is
into
they are the
army.
baddest asses at what they do, whereas the SEALs are baddest asses at what they do,
Sure,
which are two different. Those are two different
but
jobs
some
that they
people,
have.
but you get that won't stop a Green Beret and a fucking SEAL from having a all out brawl in a bar to
Oh,
figure out
that
who's
I
the
would say
best.
they're probably pretty equal. I
Right.
would
So,
say.
I
I
mean,
don't know though.
it's interesting. It's always been interesting in my life because to listen to people talk about it, there's a lot of discussion about, there are some people that think that, airborne rangers are the most elite. Whereas
But they're not though. They're not special forces. They're
uh,
advanced infantry. They're not quite special forces.
airborne rangers,
Yeah, the
or yeah,
Rangers.
well, because there's airborne and then there's the airborne rangers. So that's where
Right.
like you listen to rangers, airborne rangers talk, and they're like, fuck all these other special forces guys. We are trained with the real shit. We do the real job. So and you'll have people that will say the same thing that aren't in the military. They'll pick something that they like. Usually, like you said, it's because family. Like my brother used to
But
talk
like
up
even so,
his.
like how do you quantify which one's better, like the parajumpers or the Green Berets? Well,
Why do you
they're
think these
doing totally
arguments go
different
on
jobs.
between people all the time? About who the baddest ass is in the
I'm just saying,
military are.
like, and see, Elephant Man's backing me up. All special forces do specific jobs.
Right. I
Yeah,
get it. I get it. You know, but
yeah. I'm just saying, like, I
they
don't
all
know.
share similar characteristics in the jobs that they do as well. I mean, there are some there are some commonalities from the standpoint of combat, etc.
Well, I mean,
Or are
their
there?
firearms training is probably pretty similar.
Yeah,
Their
point and shoot.
hand-to-hand combat is probably no. I mean, there's a lot more to it than that,
Yeah, no.
obviously,
So
but
from the standpoint
their
of
hand-to-hand combat would be probably pretty similar as well.
right,
It's training for specific jobs that would separate them.
yeah,
So, like Green Berets, what they did I believe it was in Afghanistan, was they were dropped way ahead of time,
mm,
like months, and they embedded themselves in like the different tribes around Afghanistan and like developed good relations with them. So obviously they spoke Arabic, right? So that's language there, which other special forces groups might not have. And they helped protect the tribes from raids and stuff from other tribes. They did what they could to develop really good relations, got them
right.
stuff from the U.S. Got them food and whatever else. Negotiated treaties between that tribe and another tribe. Like there was all kinds of shit that happened before we even landed regular boots on the ground. There's all kinds of shit going on. But so that like a SEAL might not have that specific skill set. That's what I'm saying. They might not speak that different languages. They might not be able to have diplomatic relations in a separate language with people whose culture they're not completely familiar with. I mean, that takes a special kind of badass, but that's not the same kind of badass. I'm just saying, I don't think that we'd be able to do that with
Yeah,
special
I mean,
forces.
I get that they would have different training for specific jobs based on the medium by which they're doing their job, right? Like I know that Navy SEALs are going to be highly, one of the biggest focuses is going to be on water-based
Right. Green Berets probably
infiltration
can't
and stuff
dive
like that.
like that.
Right,
Yeah,
the diving,
probably. I mean, I don't
being
know,
underwater,
but
yeah. Um, which is why the Coast Guard looks for them. Whenever they love, they want to get people that are SEAL material in the Coast Guard because those motherfuckers have to do some badass shit. So sometimes I'm like, I don't know, man.
well, the
The Coast Guard
the
is responsible for some really tough shit.
well, the SEALs are Navy though. They're not
Well,
Coast
no,
Guard.
I get that, but like the Coast
Okay.
Guard wants,
Well, yeah, everyone
they
wants a
love to
SEAL. Yeah.
get their hands on somebody that wants to be a SEAL and get them to be in the Coast Guard because you need,
Oh yeah.
they, you know, they'll say that they need that level of
Well, that's
skill
another
and
thing.
training to
The
do the Coast Guard's job.
Yeah, that's another example of special forces. Like the Coast Guard snipers
Now
are
they're
some of the best fucking shots ever. I mean,
really
they're in a helicopter,
right.
that's swaying, is being buffeted by the wind, and they have to keep this rifle steady on a.
So
I
would you
always forget the name of it. The little cord that stabilizes the
right
gun to keeps it bouncing with the helicopter.
right
It's fucking insane what they go through. Um, you know, the, I don't know. And then of course the Marine Recon snipers will say they're the best, but
right
are
right.
they? I mean, there's
Um,
there's been like competitions and stuff,
but
but yeah, different people win all the time. So
the Coast Guard pulls off, from my understanding, if you look at different things that you've read about in the past, pulling off some crazy shit, rescuing people, just
yeah,
rescuing boaters out there on
their
the water,
divers are badass too. Yeah,
just badass divers, right?
yeah,
But so then it's like, okay, so then you still put the SEALs up against the Coast Guard. Who wins out there? Yeah, I've just always thought it was a fun, it was a very competitive thing amongst the four branches and then the subsets, and
yeah.
who's the baddest military
Well, I mean, most of
group
what
that
they
we
do
have?
is bantering, right? They mostly banter with each other. I mean, I'm sure they wouldn't
Sure.
be like, no, we don't want these
Well,
guys to come
let me
help us
ask you
out.
this.
Like they're gonna be like, yes, please, send help.
Let me ask you
you
this.
know,
If you were going to say you just suddenly shot up in popularity and you needed a bodyguard, okay? Just this
yeah,
is purely hypothetical.
right.
What branch of the service or what group in the military would you prefer to see your bodyguard be from?
Hmm, that's an
That
interesting question.
that's where we get to the bottom of, okay, who do you think is the best of the best that you would want watching your back?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably go with the SEAL just because I know that a lot of them do bodyguard work after, when they're done being SEALs. Um, and sometimes they will protect like high value targets or high value targets and stuff. Whatever major like officer like big officers, colonels and majors and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would probably have to just look at the individuals. I mean, if they have special forces on their resume, I'm gonna give them a look. I
Yeah,
want to see what else they've got
right.
going on.
Now,
I wouldn't just pick just because they went through special forces training and
I'm
are a
sure.
badass.
I don't know how many of them you're actually going to find in like the private sector security bodyguard situation. More bodyguards, not just security. I didn't mean it
I
like
mean, you'll
that.
find enough.
But
John can
well,
only have a Highlander for a bodyguard, dude. If he has to have a kilt and a claymore and paint himself in woad.
but
He needs woad paint all the time, and then I'll do it.
wouldn't it be
That would
more
be awesome.
beneficial to, if you're going to continue with something in the mindset of defense, or what you were trained to do, you know, wouldn't it be more lucrative to go work for somebody
Yeah,
in private
most SEALs do
warfare,
become.
private
Yeah,
warfare,
most of them
mercenaries?
do become defense contractors. Yeah,
Is that what
whether
we're calling mercenaries these days? I love it.
no, no. Mercenaries fall under defense contractors, but not all defense contractors are. mercenaries.
Sure, I get.
There's a lot of like the building weapons.
Mhm.
I forget which one it was, but there was a sniper rifle that came out recently, as in within like the past 10 years. Um,
John
that
can
was made by a former SEAL.
John can only have a Highlander for a
Yeah,
bodyguard.
that's what I was. I
That's
was answering
funny.
that.
Oh,
Yeah, I
did
was
you?
answering that earlier when I was saying needs to wear a kilt
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah, I
have
don't
to
think you can make those
have woad
requests
paint.
though. Yeah.
If my bodyguard, I can do. Yeah, I'm paying them. And damn
uh,
it, better wear the uniform.
so
Better have a claymore too.
so
I don't want
Sully
a gun.
Sully says, look into the SEALs. They're the ninja cowboys of the special forces. The SEALs do the
Yeah,
most special interest target missions, whether for retrieval, protection, or termination. And yes,
I
I know
believe
that
Delta
James
does that as
Bond,
well.
Jason Bourne
Snatch and
can't actually
grabs.
exist.
Right, of
Too many
course.
specialized skills, right? And I mean, of course, the beauty of it is, you know,
Those are fiction for a reason. Yeah.
I've always, when you grow up in the '80s in the Cold War, everything was about spies, right?
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
wasn't your that's back when those books were being written, but only James Bond did justice to the spy
The
on
genre, yeah.
movies and whatnot. Everything else just fell into the category of private detectives when you watch the stuff on TV, and stuff like that. But um, yeah, so it was like James Bond was it, and yeah, you got an idealized idea of what spies were supposed to be like, what they made you think they were like, because there was
Right.
always so much subterfuge. And you especially when you would watch movies where they would like I remember watching a movie, and I can't remember the name of it right off the top of my head, but basically they were building American towns in Russia during the Cold War, and bringing Americans in, teaching these people how to speak English and blend in. Now, how much of that was propaganda and how much of that was actually going on over in Russia? Because, we would see stuff that would be based off a true story, things like this. Um,
Right.
but it was like, okay, so Russia is like building American, and it would be like 1950s, 60s towns, in the 80s,
Yeah.
trying to instill those old family values kind of things. And then some would be a little more modern, whatever. But that was the picture that was painted that was going on. So it wasn't hard to believe that you had these spies that were doing all of these nefarious things to try and infiltrate things like this that the Russians were doing. Um, Very hard to discern propaganda from reality, even back then. I'm just
Oh
saying.
yeah.
Um, so it was, I don't know, I don't know if the CIA has anything like that, any badasses like that, because it's not like they would tell us, right?
No, I mean I do believe they have like somewhat of badasses, yeah, but
Because
they're
that would be a
not.
direction to go from the SEALs or the Rangers or the Green Berets or something afterwards, right? After military service.
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
I don't know. I'm still, I
Yeah.
guess it was just recently, like during the Trump election and all the bullshit that was coming out from that. I'm like, okay, so are we really running spies that much to where, you know, they're sending them over here in the form of the redhead that was involved with, trying to get involved with the NRA and stuff. Forget what her name was, because she's 5 minutes ago. Um,
Yeah.
but even on our side, where we were having people that were trying to infiltrate groups, I'm like, is that still going on? I mean, I get police work, but is the CIA still doing spy shit? And so, do they have an elite force that we don't know about? What do they have, John? And does it scare you?
Nah.
No? All
Not
right.
right now, at least.
Yeah.
Elephant Man is wondering what the original conversation was, and
It
I
was
kind of am too.
it actually. I mean, I think we got to talking about we went off on a tangent about the military, just
Yeah, yeah.
talking
You were
about our
talking about.
presence in the world,
Well, yeah,
and
that was the original
yeah,
conversation.
and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and about from a military standpoint. I mean, that's why I asked who's on alert. How much
yeah.
of the military's focus is internally right now versus out there at the rest of the world. That's a deep question in my mind.
Yeah.
What is going on in Syria? Have we gotten out of there? Are we pulling out of these countries? How much removal are we doing, and are we doing it the right way?
Right.
Because we're not hearing anything about it. They're not talking about it because every bit of focus seems to be on the protests.
Right.
and what's happening with those. And of course now I'm starting to see the virtue signaling, a lot of virtue signaling coming out of major companies. Like you're seeing it a lot in the last week or so.
Oh
All
yeah.
right, this major virtue signaling coming out of major corporations
The
that are putting
desperate plea to please don't burn down our stores.
right, right. We're
Yeah.
with you.
Uh huh.
As McDonald's said, we see you in our customers, we see you in our employees, we
Oh
see
my
you
God.
in our franchisees. More of that virtue signaling that in and of itself, in my opinion, feeds to the racism, feeds into it so deeply.
Hmm.
Um, so and now with reports that there's a lot of European countries that are now starting to support the protesters over here, feed their fire with
Yeah.
global support.
Yeah,
Um,
which is pretty silly.
you know, um, that propaganda, that kind of thing, how much is that going to keep these things moving and keep them going on? Um, we've talked about it in Discord. Do you think they have to get a guilty conviction on all of these officers? Is that the only
Um,
way that this is truly going to stop or prevent more from happening?
yeah, I think the only way, I mean, they have to at least get the guy, Chauvin or whatever. Yeah, they have to at least get him. Uh,
I don't know. Yeah.
that's
Is
about
that
it.
but is that going to
I
be
think,
enough to appease?
I think so. No, not to appease. I think it'll just burn out after a while. Like once that happens,
Um,
it's not going to appease because there's always because now as all these things do, it's infiltrated by people and their agendas, like groups and their agendas, and
right,
so they're going to keep trying to keep it going to like push their issue into there too. So it's only gonna, like I said, it's gonna have to peter out. It's not gonna just
right.
stop one day. All right, that's enough. We're done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Um,
It's not gonna work
it.
that way.
I know it's having. I know it's giving our economy a second gut punch. I know that's happening. You can see the repercussions of it throughout the country. Walmart is closed down quite a few stores. Some just because like okay, we're the best way for us to deal with the curfew is just shut our doors because it's getting hot here. But in
Yeah,
other places, front facing's broken out. And Teresa showed me pictures that they had sent out to employees. One store had just been completely looted, like gutted, looted. I mean, I'm
yeah,
surprised they didn't drag the shelves out. It was that badly looted and broken up, and so we're going to see some major repercussions in the economy from this. So
oh yeah,
you we can't afford we can't afford to not get everything that the protests want to happen out of this. You can't afford to not have a knee-jerk reaction and start capitulating to this. It seems. I mean, that's what I'm seeing right now is
yeah,
that most of the country is going to cuck to this in their own way, and even to the extent that I don't know, man. I think they'll scapegoat the four guys. They're going to make scapegoats out of all of them.
yeah.
You
They
know,
might. I know they're gonna throw the book at the one guy, Chauvin,
I mean, the stuff
but
now you're finding stuff coming out. One of the cops today, Land, they put out there that he has a criminal history and a whole bunch of parking fines and tickets. you know,
I mean, yeah.
did you did you not send Midget the
Oh,
link?
I did, but he doesn't want to download Zoom and stuff. So
It'll target it through a web browser, so you don't have to download it. Just saying.
he already said he doesn't want to. I don't know.
Well,
He just said I'm not gonna do all that. So it's fine. We
yeah,
don't have that
it's
much time left in the show anyway.
yeah. Yeah, fuck him, right? Fuck him if he
Yeah,
don't want to join us.
that's right.
I guess we have to look at all these things and we have to add them up, um, because we can't keep our eyes too far off the prize. Because as soon as we can put this to rest, then of course we have to go back to focusing on the coronavirus. That's right, because that's still big enough that it'll become the default once all of the protests finally end or hopefully end.
Right.
And I should say riots because the protesting can go on. It's
Yeah.
just the stupid part of it. Um, but we've got to deal with the coronavirus. We're opening up. We're hitting our second phase of opening up right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard the good news.
I did.
There was supposed to be a party, but you can't have more than 50 people in a place right now. So, but I
Yeah.
think they ramp up now. They're going to ramp stores up. They should be ramping stores up to like 75% to maximum capacity, depending on the size of the place. And restaurants are going to be able to loosen up some of their restrictions. We've got Universal is opening up, and Disney has got plans for the 1st of July. So Florida is on track to open up. Now we just need to not have to have curfews because of the riots and the protests and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Well, we especially need to open back up because it's getting to summer, which is
Oh
our
yeah,
biggest tourist time.
yeah,
You know, June, July, August, and September are like that's the money making time for Florida.
yeah.
So yeah, we definitely need to be opening back up by then.
Um, uh, Elephant Man is saying the riots usually burn out after a week, but this
Hmm.
looks funded. Of course, that's a lot of discussion that goes on. And
Yeah.
why do you think, with my wife and I, when we were talking about it, we happened to be looking at the pictures, and she's like, "Why does he have a widow's peak in this picture and he doesn't in that one?" So it was a very obvious C, even for
Yeah.
her, who she doesn't spend a lot of time reading about this stuff and everything, but. So yeah, this whole funded thing is very questionable sometimes. Sully says, I agree, Elephant Man, but a lot of people haven't been working and still
Hmm.
aren't full time. I think that's a factor. It's a huge factor. People
Yeah.
got, what else? What else am I going to do, right? I mean, I'm out of a job. I'm getting 600 plus dollars for my unemployment right now. So what? Like, it's like people are going on vacation in their mind, and they're
Yeah.
indefinite vacation. Sully had also said he was upset that Sasha Grey virtue signal. I'll have to destroy my ham candle to some other bukkake. Um, what did Sasha Grey do? Are
I
you
guess she's a
familiar?
porn star. I don't know.
Oh, I got
I
you.
don't usually know their names.
Oh, I get it. Ham candle.
Yeah.
I thought he maybe had one of those man candles that smells like ham.
Dude, that would be delicious.
It's a thing.
I bet it is.
Look
I don't
at,
really
well,
do
I don't
candles
know.
though.
They're called man candles, so you have to look and see if they're still being sold, if they're still out on the market. But they had all sorts of flavors. Um, they even had fart. Like if you want,
Nice.
like you could open that candle up if you wanted to clear a room and just wanted your space for
Yeah,
yourself.
that sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah. Uh, he, Elephant Man says, Blue, I was thinking that until the stories about bricks being laid out. Yeah, see, but there's so many stories. It's like, and so much tinfoil going on these days about
Yeah.
everything. That it's like, okay, for instance, like I'd said in a previous show about the police tags on Minneapolis police cars, and they were like, oh, how many police cars do you see with a vanity plate? Well, go look. Search it
Hmm.
on the internet, and you'll start to see very candid photos of police cars from all different places, and it says police on their fucking tag. I mean,
Right.
so how much credence do you start to give to these things? You can only go with what you see with your eyes and then hope that you can figure out if it was photoshopped or if it's just a bad camera angle or if it's just shadow or if it's the Illuminati or you know,
Right.
it's like what's the answer behind everything. But yeah, we got to end the riots so that we can get back to ending the lockdowns.
Yeah.
People aren't going to focus on ending these lockdowns for the coronavirus if we are having to curfew because of the protests and the riots.
Right.
Not that the protesters and the riots are adhering to any curfew. A lot of the protesters are, I would say,
Right.
but of course, the reaction to those that don't, it's going a little farther than civil disobedience. But when it comes to the rioters, is it going far enough? It's God damn it. God damn it. I don't want to have to ask these questions over and over, but that's the consistent picture.
Yeah.
Sully says Sasha Grey is one of maybe 5 porn stars I actually know their name. You can thank deployment and a 1 terabyte hard drive of porn.
Nice.
Elephant says my man card is revoked because of
Uh-huh.
was it because of the
The candles,
candles?
I imagine.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey, you know what? A candle that smells like ham is not a bad thing, nor is a candle that
Yeah.
smells like bacon.
Right. I'm not against
Fight
that.
me. Bacon scented candles, fight me. I'm just telling you.
Or
If
you could
I
just make bacon and then you have,
Yeah, but I can't
the
sit here
smell
while
and the taste
I
of
can't sit
bacon.
here unless I sit and cook up a whole bunch and have it to eat on, but I can't smell fresh cooking bacon right here in my studio while
That's
I'm on
true.
the thing. So, give me a candle. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Don't knock bacon, fuckers. I'm just saying. Sully said, well, yeah, I watch videos of them being delivered. I have no doubt there is funding behind it. I haven't
Well, yeah, I
seen
mean,
any
someone's
of it.
buying the bricks and delivering them. Question is who,
And for
and
which side, right?
well, I mean, you can always once you know who, you kind of know why, and you know
I mean, it's surely anybody
for
that's
whom.
trying to anybody that's part of a peaceful protest, they wouldn't have anything to do with it. We would expect, right? Um, or would we expect protesters to have a card up their sleeve and have bricks delivered so just in case there's the rabble in the protest, they can amp it
Mm,
up a notch with some bricks? Or is it
I
anarchists?
mean, maybe.
Or is it some people have posited that it was the police putting it out there to? Okay, so now we've got so many sources of who this could be. you know whose
Yeah.
propaganda will be the loudest and take and lay the blame at.
It's which one's more effective, not necessarily the loudest. But yeah,
Well,
I get what you mean, though.
if they all have the same intended outcome, they've all been successful at this point because it
Well,
worked.
yeah.
That's, again, you can't pinpoint the outcome because it's a very blurry outcome when it's all said and done. Who is to blame for stores getting broken into? Because I've seen lots of different people on different videos doing different things that are
Yeah.
like, who do you blame for this going on and for this going on?
Right.
Fuck. Can't we all just go home and cook some bacon? Is that too much to ask?
Can't we all
Let's,
just go to the bar and have a drink? God damn.
yeah, right? I mean, it's one of those things. Let's just all sit down, and have a couple of beers. No, we don't need to have a 12 pack and you go off the chain.
Who's
Let's have a couple of beers and
what?
some conversation. You know,
It does sound good. Yeah.
put that.
Beer.
No, we don't need to do 40. If what's the game that they do with the 240s?
Oh, 40 hands? Yeah.
40 hands. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We don't need to do 40 hands. We just need
Nah.
just sit down for a couple of beers. Just a couple of beers. The government's buying. They'll print some money up. Don't worry.
It'll be fine.
Right? We got that covered. Helton says a keg or you ain't serious. I can
Fair.
see that.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Sully says, "Hey, I had a race fuel candle. Terrible. Burnt rubber though was great. I
Nice.
mean, you never know what your smell is going to be. What if you like?
Sully's a car guy though.
You know what
So
I like the smell of a football. I don't love sitting around
okay.
watching the sport, but I love the smell of a new football.
Right. I get you. I get what you mean. See, I like that about like a new book.
Yes,
Like,
new
you
book,
flip the pages and
great
like,
smell.
oh, so
Right.
good. Yeah.
When I was in school, when I was in elementary school, back in the day, we used to have the carbon copy uh, machines. You didn't print things out. It was you put carbon paper in with stuff that you wanted to print, and it would put it
Hmm.
on. So you would get when you would get tests and stuff, you would get it, and you could smell the ink from the carbon copy printer, and it was like a
Yeah.
little buzz. You get this buzz. And teachers hated handing out. Some of them hated handing out the test because they were like, "Put your papers down. Put your test."
Stop smelling your
Because
papers.
around the whole fucking class, everybody had
It's
getting their little buzz.
funny.
But I don't know. It's not the same these days with a printed page coming out of a printer. You got to have that carbon
Yeah,
copy
I
paper.
do like the warmth of that though. Like the paper's all warm.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
cool. But yeah, so you never know with a candle, buddy. But I don't think raised fuel would be the thing. No. Sully says, I think 80% of these people are peaceful and protesting in a just cause. And I have to agree. It isn't a huge, percentage of the. At this point, no. I mean, I would say that there was a closer mix in the early days of this, because those first few days, the first 2 or 3 days, it was an equal mix of everybody popping off. There was actual rioting just for the sake of rioting in the first couple of days, in my opinion. That was very much like the riots in L.A. Because I don't think there was ever any talk about those being staged, but uh, that 20% of the other group. Elf says class struggle is always being obfuscated with race and gender wars. Of course, that's part of the propaganda. We've got to make this a much deeper issue. That way, the deeper we make the issue, the further we can push the goalpost as we move through this. As the discussions happen and the knee-jerk reactions and legislation happens, et cetera, if we build a convoluted enough story, we get to push the goalpost back for a longer period of time, and that's it's happening. It's happening in all of this. The goalpost is going to be pushed back. It's much like what social justice, John. That's a goalpost game, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, virtue signaling and all of it. Um, Ed says he blames the guy who doesn't read my chats. Wow, for
That'd be
yeah.
you, I guess, or us, both of us.
Well, yeah, you don't.
I
Um,
mean, I was reading his chat, but I wasn't reading it out loud.
Yeah, yeah, because he said earlier, I'm not working full time. I'll just take this protest money from the cell. What is it with him and Polish things today? He was talking about something else in Discord that he had that was Polish, but anyway, not that. Sully says I'm not racist, but my first two cars were broken into and stolen, both by black guys. Doesn't
Dude.
mean I hate all black people. No, I mean you can't.
One
Um,
of them was on graduation day, wasn't it? Honda. I think it was like right when we graduated uh high school, and like we went to the movies, and then we came back out. No, no, it was in the middle of the night after the movie. Like he went home,
oh, so you were there
and then
for
like
one of these?
no, 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 because he went home after the movie, and then told me the next day that his car was broken into
Oh,
that night.
right,
Yeah, so like if
but
he had stayed out for like another a couple hours or so,
right,
his car might not have got broken into.
yeah.
I think I'm remembering that correctly though.
Yeah, and yeah, you don't hate all blacks for that. But on the flip side, you also, when your truck gets broken into and your gun is stolen and you don't know who did it, you don't just assume that the first black guy you see running through your neighborhood is that guy either.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying. You know,
Oh, but
that
that's
that
already
is
gone. That's
racist,
already done with though. The Michael Overy thing's already done.
is it?
No, yeah,
N-
we're on this now.
no, 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 because we've got new now. Now I'm starting to see his name come up more because there's new evidence. Because we have one of the two standing over him and apparently is heard on the tape saying effing inward
Yeah, so
while
that sounds like
standing over his body. So now
that's
this is
gonna
going to
fuck him
take,
up in court. Yeah.
yeah, and this is going to catapult Ahmad Arbery much more into this situation than I believe he was in the early part of it. It's going to have an impact because yeah, that's a thing now. There was
Holy
obvious
shit.
racism now at the scene of this, caught
Read
on
what
video.
read what Sully's saying there. Yeah, my first car was stolen the morning of my high school graduation. That's what I was talking about. And ironically, my mom's car too. While I was in boot camp, that kid's friend stole my dad's truck and his gun out of it. Damn, like they're coming after you guys. Like, what'd you
Right
guys do? What did you guys do to them?
now, I'm gonna,
You must have
but
done something.
I'm gonna
'Cause
put
they
this out there
targeted your asses.
that
Bad.
this is the kind of thing that you know very specifically is going to trigger even subconsciously. Now, I'm not saying Sully's racist. I'm not going to say that at all because I will
Right.
agree with him that he's not if that's what he says.
I haven't seen anything from him
But
that suggests that he might be, so
but
I wouldn't think that.
for any person out there, these are those kind of repeated incidents are
Hmm.
what can trigger that base nature in us of separatism, you know, or what did you call it? Self dividing. Um,
I don't know what you mean. What do you
how
mean with that?
our inherent racism is what I'm talking
Oh,
about.
in
Our
group preference.
in group preference, yes,
Yeah.
it can trigger that because of bad experiences, repeated bad experiences. It's one of those things. So I'm like, how could we ever hope to avoid this? It needs to become a non-conversation for it to ever go away, and only and let it go back to being isolated incidents that happen that are specific to it. It's not as systematic and widespread as these riots would have you believe. I don't think. But of course, I'll have data thrown at me that's wrong and paint me in the wrong on it. Um, but I don't necessarily trust any of that anyway. Um, Aloe for Janie's gonna fucking burn.
Wait,
um,
what?
they're talking about beer. Keystone Ice
Oh,
5.9. Not really tasty,
gotcha,
but cheap.
gonna.
Keystone. God, I haven't had that in a long time.
I don't know why you would on purpose.
Well, once upon a time, when it first came out, it was like, oh, Keystone, Keystone. So you drink. All beer is shit in the long run. So I don't
No,
want to. I don't want to hear it. I've seen what
it's
you
not.
drink, and I don't want to hear
What I
it.
drink is awesome.
Which one?
Yingling is delicious.
And whenever you're not wanting to spend for the Yingling.
Oh yeah, Coors Light. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
horse
fair. But
piss.
that's
What?
yeah, no, that absolutely is. It's more about quantity over quality
Yeah. So
when it
that's where
comes to that.
Keystone
Yeah,
came in. That's where
yeah.
Keystone came in, right?
When it comes to being on a budget, you have to go for quantity over quality.
I think beers like Keystone are what killed Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Pabst Blue Ribbon is still around.
Yeah,
It's a
but
big
it's not
hipster
like
beer.
it's yeah. Oh, is it more hipster beer now?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Gotcha. Uh, Sully friends someone else. Midget says, imagine standing over exactly what you expected to find after behaving as unpredictably as you might have expected. Wow, that was deep. That was kind of profound, right?
I guess.
God, you don't give credit where credit is due. Whoever knew Midget was that deep and could still see over the top. uh, Elephant says, ask if Sully is a smartass. Is Sully a smartass?
I would say so. Yeah.
Midget says, adrenaline going, you might go PewDiePie mode. Who might go? God, no. I don't even want to know about no
That's
PewDiePie.
referencing when one time during a live stream, PewDiePie was playing a game and called someone the N word,
Oh,
and
gotcha,
he got
gotcha.
into all kinds of trouble for it. Yeah.
Sully says, well, I had my mom's spare key in my car to move it anytime, and his truck was more than likely a retaliation for that kid going to
Yeah.
jail.
Makes sense.
Uh, Sully, I can't. Sully says he can be a smartass, but that all 100% happened. Freaking crazy.
Yeah, and I remember the first part. I'm not sure. You probably told me about the rest of it, but I especially remember his car getting broken into the morning of graduation.
Right? Ed's got a good
Um,
point. I love seeing car thieves that can't drive a stick, and I think that might be a way to really diminish car theft in this country. Start making them all stick shift again.
well, then
There
people
would
would
be a
start learning
well,
how to
hold on.
drive
There would be a
stick.
there would be an interim there where you would see a dip in crime. I'm
Yeah,
just saying there would. Um,
very small one, but yeah.
I mean, forgery. They're going to be able to they'll be able to keep catching forgery if we still have cursive signatures, but that's going
Hmm.
away. So it's like, oh shit, you know,
Eventually, you use like your thumbprint and shit.
right? You
You
can't build that.
watch.
You won't be able to build that into the Jason Bourne profile anymore. No, you can't get who writes like that. Nobody writes like
Yeah,
that. You can't get forgery anymore. Uh, um, Sully says I drink a Guinness for breakfast every time I go to Savannah,
nice, dude. I'm not a big fan of Guinness, but I
and he
respect
says
that.
Miller is the go-to when saving money. Now, see, there's a bold statement right there.
Yeah,
Miller
that is a
High
bold
Life.
statement.
Whoo,
The
see,
champagne of beers. Yeah.
right, Miller High
Ooh.
Life. But
Nah,
I'll
dude.
tell you this right now.
Gross.
I'm gonna tell you this right now. Those little Miller High Life ponies, man. You see, all around Oklahoma when I was growing up, that's what you'd see people drinking was those little Miller High Life ponies. You get them in an 8 pack, little 8 little ponies. But yeah, uh, oh, he also says both of those his mom and his car were both stick.
Yeah,
So
they
it's
were.
good to see that some kids can still drive stick. Um, yeah,
I guess so.
they don't want to learn. They don't want to learn it. Oof. But it was, it worked out great for my wife and with her stepdaughters. They never took the car out for joy rides because they were too intimidated by learning how to drive the stick. In my opinion, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But Elephant Man says, I would tell you what I drink, but it would give away where I live. Would it?
If it's only available there, then I probably wouldn't know what it is. So
I mean, that would have to be some very specialized stuff, unless it's
yeah,
just a very culturally appropriate,
and
expected thing.
even then, I don't know.
Ed says, I never took the keys out of my S10. See, but, is that, would you still do that today, Ed? The Firebird, not so much. Yeah, Firebird. God, I wish I had this. I had the old Firebird. That was a nice car.
Hmm.
Um, Ed says he quit drinking beer, which I think is, that's just rude, because
Yeah, beer needs
then
love too, man.
like you can't throw a party where like beer is your main, is the thing that you
Yeah.
supply when you have those people who are like, oh well, I don't drink beer. Do you have any whiskey? Well, no, I didn't stock a bar. I supplied beer. You
Well,
fuck.
that's why you just tell. That's why you bring your own if you're gonna,
But
especially if you're gonna be a Scotch
but see,
drinker, you don't want to just like
but
bring a
see,
bottle for everyone. You
but
just kind of
everybody
like,
thinks BYOB is bring your own beer, and people like him, they do this. Oh well, I don't drink beer anyway, so I'm not bringing anything.
all right, well
And
then
it's like,
bring
but dude, that could
Scotch.
stand for bring your own booze too. So get off your ass, go get your own booze, and quit being such an elitist. I mean, not that Ed's that way. He says he grew up and graduated to Scotch. Whatever.
Yeah,
See, that's
and
what
that's
I'm
what I've
talking
been
about.
doing
Look at him.
too.
Look at him
That's what
with
I've
it.
been doing too. When I have drink, it's Scotch now.
Sully says I was raised with rum and whiskey. Beer came later. I still want to know. I got to hear from Elephant Man. He's at least got to give us a hint. A
Yeah, give
hint
us
to
something,
what it
man.
is that you drink that would maybe give us a hint as to what the broad spectrum of where you live. But
Yeah.
unless it's if it's a national security secret, then by all means we expect you to tell us.
And yeah, Sully, I'm a whiskey drinker too. I don't
Sally,
really
oh
do
yeah,
rum
my
though,
dad
not
had one.
anymore.
The wire was a nightmare. Uh, Ed didn't own an automatic till he was 23. Why would you want to go to an automatic if you were raised on sticks? Would you like an automatic though, right, John?
Um, I mean, I had a little Ford Ranger that was stick shift, and I liked that little car, a little truck. It was a truck, but
Would you agree
um,
automatics are
just
for
barely.
lazy drivers?
Um, I suppose so, but I mean, I'm also a lazy driver, so
Are you
I
really?
prefer. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't speed anywhere. Not anymore. It took me like three speeding tickets to figure that out.
Right.
But yeah, after that, yeah, I mean, I just kind of make my way places. I don't.
If I'm on a cross country drive, if I'm going on vacation or whatever, I would prefer to have an automatic for that. Mainly because you never know when you're going to run into traffic going through cities, going through towns, whatever,
Yeah,
on the interstate. You never know when you're going to run into traffic. And I hate a
right.
stick shift in too much traffic.
Oh my God, yeah. I was in a town nearby to me going down a pretty major road, and it was so backed up that like I could not get out of second, or I could not get out of first gear. That was the annoying part, was because it would be like getting up to the point where you'd shift, and then it was like, oh nope, stop. So I'm like, like I just want to fucking finish the action and actually shift. But like I was in first, all the way down, and I was just like, fuck. It
uh,
pissed me off. I was yelling like out loud in the truck,
uh,
like in traffic. I was just like, God damn it!
Sully wanted it to be clarified that he was not drinking Miller High Life. He's talking
Right.
about Miller Light. there was the before four time when
in the long, long ago.
in the long long ago where there wasn't a thing called Miller Lite. There was
Right.
Miller High Life,
Yeah.
and
Oh, don't get
that's
me wrong. I've
that's
drank
all there
plenty of
was
Miller
to
High
it,
Life. Yeah, I drank plenty of Miller High Life when I was living in the flop house. Um,
right?
uh, yeah, that's pretty much what we could afford, right? It
Right.
was like $12 for an 18 pack, so it was like nothing.
You
But
know
the thing
why?
is, it was so foamy. It was fucking ridiculous. Like it would just foam up and shoot out of the
Right.
bottle, like at the slightest provocation.
Now,
Really dumb.
I'm not gonna argue that there were not socially propagated ideas of why it was done, but I have a theory as to why light beers came around, and it wasn't about better, healthier, better for you beers and stuff like that. It was simply this: beer tastes like shit, John,
I
and
know. I'm aware.
companies made light beers because they tried to smooth out the taste of beer, but knew it would get the reaction of being a negative because people were so used to how beers tasted, how
Hmm.
Bud tasted, how Miller tasted, you know. So we have to call it light and tell that's what it's for. But it was actually just their way of trying to make a better version of what they already fucking had, because beer tastes like shit, you know.
It does. That's actually why you have to keep it really cold. That's why on Coors Lights they have the
Yeah.
mountains that turn blue when it's cold enough. It's because the colder something is, the less you taste it.
That's why I drink beer too fast. I wind up drinking beer very fast because I don't want
I
it to
didn't
sit.
notice that
I
when
don't
I've
want it
seen
to
you
start
drink.
getting warm. Sometimes
Not
I
th-
don't drink it as fast, and you'll notice that's
yeah.
usually when I leave a third of the beer probably
Oh my
because it's
god,
gotten
you're
warm.
horrible. You're
Because I
abusing alcohol.
I can't
It's
stand the taste
terrible.
of warm beer, especially when it starts to go flat. It's got to be cold, so it keeps that. That's the only thing that makes it tolerable is good cold temperatures. So. Uh, as says somebody stole from a drive shaft from his S10. You deserved it. Look at how you were dressed. Sully says, "Yeah, I've got that 18-year-old scotch. We'll have 18-year-old scotch. See,
To
you know,
finish it off. Fuck yeah, man.
see,
Dude, we were supposed to
scotch
hang out
is."
like weeks ago. We need to get that together. We need to
You
do
have to
that.
remember that. Elephant Man says his second favorite is Killian's Irish Red,
That's a
but
cider, isn't it?
nothing
I'm
else
pretty
passed
sure.
by with him giving any other clues. Killian's Red? No,
It's not a cider. I thought it
I don't.
was.
And no, it doesn't. If I'm not mistaken, Killian's is considered an ale. Is that right,
I don't
Elephant
know.
Man? If I'm not mistaken.
I'm gonna look it up right now.
Um, yeah, Killian's is a. I almost want to say a red ale, but it's fell into the pale ale. If it were, because it's also intersectionalized now as to what it actually is. Irish uh,
Is a red
Irish
beer.
red ale is the Irish red beer. So it's not an ale; it's a
Well, hang
beer.
on. It's an amber lager. The premium lager is an amber lager, and then they have all kinds of different things. Um,
Well, I'm guessing he's just doing straight up Killian's red.
right, red ale. It was originally an Irish red ale,
Gotcha. Okay, that's what
called
I was thinking.
Enniscorthy Ruby Ale, and brewed from 1864 to 1956, when it was closed and
Oh,
discontinued.
wait. Yeah.
George Killian's bought it. Blah blah blah. Amber Lager was originally marketed by Coors as a 4.9% red ale. Yeah, it looks like it's an amber lager. Which I enjoy lagers. Actually, that's my preferred beer if I have to have one.
Yeah. Now, Sully said it was cost effective to make light beers, and people would have to drink more to get drunk. Yes, I think but I still think it was to try and get the beer to stop tasting like shit, primarily so they could get more women to drink it. That was a big one, getting women to drink it
Mm,
and more
mm-hmm.
of it.
Right.
But ales are Sully says ales are the best. They're the best style of beer. Elephant Man says, no, 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 no. You are all doing it wrong. Find beer that tastes good warm, and it will taste awesome cold. You lost me at warm.
Yeah. I
Sorry.
mean, I can stand
I know.
Yingling
I
warm,
know.
but I would obviously rather not do that.
I know that there are places where they serve it warm, and I would have to. I don't know. Um, wow. I don't know, cause man, I can't love the. I'll drink it, like I'll drink a beer or two because it's there's a certain aspect of it that's refreshing as long as it's really
Hmm.
cold and stuff. But the flavor of it just doesn't do anything for me. The closest I have had is a shock top, like a shock top type honey wheat, citrus wheat. Some of the wheat beers aren't too horrible, but then a lot of times they'll get over effervescenced, as it were. Um, Sully says, "I'll text you later and see when you're free." Killian's, yeah, the Irish trade that we're
Yeah,
talking about. Sully says his favorite is Kona Big Wave. That sounds like coffee,
it does.
right?
Probably because it sounds similar to Kahlua.
Kona's a Hawaiian. More than it is.
Yeah, I know.
But Sully says, well, light beers are typically lagers, which are fermented colder. Ales are fermented at higher temps. It's all about the yeast and what temp. But now you say he's talking about beers being lagers, but Guinness is a stout, not a lager.
Guinness is a stout. Yeah,
But a stout what?
stout beer.
Is it a stout beer? Is it a stout ale? Is it a
No, it's a
stout
beer.
lager?
No, lager is a beer. It's a type of beer, and stout
Okay.
is also a type of beer.
It's just,
Same thing with like an IPA is a type of
but
beer.
is an ale considered a
Pilsner is a
beer?
type of beer.
Or does beer
Uh,
fall under ale? What's the
I'm not
hierarchy?
100%. Oh, stout falls under ale, says Sully.
Ah, see,
I
there you
guess.
go. See,
I
I
don't
would
know. I
expect
honestly
that
don't
to
know
be
the
an ale.
difference.
I would
Yeah,
expect it to be an ale because if I'm not mistaken, it's a thicker,
it
richer.
is thicker. Yeah,
Uh,
it's you almost have to chew it. It's so thick. It's ridiculous.
uh,
Not a big fan.
Sully says on a hot day doing yard work, a 50-50 of lemonade and a cheap light beer.
Hell yeah. See, that's what I'm talking about. When you don't want to get
Well,
drunk, but you still need something to drink.
then if you want a cheap light beer, um, man, you gotta go get what what was the name of that fucking beer? We used to go Schaefer's.
Schaefer's?
God, we used to.
Don't know if they
We
still
would
have
break
those.
into the bottling. It wasn't a bottling plant. It was a distribution plant. They where they distributed all sorts of beers, and we could get over the fence and we could open the trucks because a lot of times they'd leave trucks unlocked, the big panel trucks, right? And we go and we
Yeah.
grab us two or three
Wow.
cases of fucking Schaefer or whatever, because those are the ones that they'd leave unlocked because those fucking beers didn't matter. We didn't put two and two together there. We thought we
Right.
were doing something awesome because we knew the trucks were unlocked. But the only two things that were ever there were Schaefer and Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Right.
And, so, but yeah, Schaefer's. Oh, you want to talk about some fucking horse piss?
Oh
Ooh, I'm
yeah.
surprised that didn't eat through the cans it was put in.
That sounds like was it Hurricane or what was the other one? Steel Reserve.
Oh, I've heard of it. I've never tried it.
Oh, dude, it's so nasty. That's not even. I wouldn't even play beer pong with that beer. It's just not worth it at all.
Elephant Man says his beer doesn't go in the fridge until May.
Probably somewhere. That means he
Is
lives
that an
somewhere cold. We're
indication?
narrowing it down.
Is that an indication? And also warm beers are good. So that does that not take it out of the country?
I guess so. Yeah, because I don't really know anyone
I don't know.
or
Do we
know
have
of
any
that
areas
being a
here where
thing.
that's yeah?
A warm beer? No, that doesn't sound like an American thing. Elephant Man might not be from America.
So it says there are only Elephant Man says that lager and ale are different types of yeast process. Right. The
Right.
the lagers get a much deeper. It's a more the yeast is cooked more, isn't it?
Oh,
Is a big part of
Sully's
it.
asking if I'm popping the chest tonight or soon. I'll do it right now.
Do that chest. Pop your chest out, John. Pop your
Mm,
chest out. Show them what you got. Elfman says ale is
30
made with
seconds.
top fermenting yeast, but lager is made with bottom fermenting yeast. Gotcha. So lager's a bottom feeder, whereas ale is a top feeder. what do you get from the middle feeders, like the middle class? What does the middle class make?
I have no idea. They know a lot more about
Oh,
this than I do.
money for
So
roads. Ha!
nice.
You pop in the chest. Come on, guys. I'm in the
Yeah.
U.S. Are you? So you are in the U.S. So is your preferences in beer, ale, whatever? Is any of that does any of that have anything to do with where you might actually be located? Like, are any of those clues, or were we just hoping to see something in you just making conversation?
yeah.
Because you're mean and you won't tell us what your favorite thing to drink is.
Right.
God,
How rude.
I mean, it's jeez. You want to talk about tinfoil? Oh, I can't tell them what I drink. It'll purely dox me. Really? Will it?
right.
Will it?
Apparently.
Like you say if you say peppermint schnapps and suddenly somebody knows that you're from
Right.
Redondo Beach, California. I mean,
right.
come on.
But I mean, I'll tell you what I like. My favorite is Irish whiskeys, specifically Slane Irish whiskey. But I mean, anyone will do.
He's in a big microbrew area. Oh, so you
Oh,
mean
Milwaukee. Gotcha.
is that a big
Or
microbrew
Cincinnati,
area?
or Cincinnati, or New York, or LA, or pretty
Yeah.
much
I mean, there's a
anywhere on the coast or the north border.
everybody tries to
Like
have
it
their
could be anywhere.
microbrew area to tout out now, right?
That's probably what he means, though, is that like the beer that he likes the best is a local brewery that is only in that place. That's probably what he means.
it can't be, John. It
It
just
might be
can't be that.
because a lot of those do that. Do. I said
Because
do
nobody
do.
said it had to be beer. Or is he just trying to? If he is he
I don't
going
know.
with
It
beer,
doesn't
so we
matter.
don't call him an elitist? You
It
know,
doesn't matter.
like
Oh, dude,
Ed.
no. The hipster beers, they're beer snobs, dude. They're like the worst.
All right, so you know what, John?
Yeah.
So I can get
I
the
hit
hell
it
out
with
of
one of
here.
those. I think it's Milwaukee.
Yeah, it's got to be Milwaukee.
Or
All right,
Milwaukee or
um,
Cincinnati. It's not one of the main ones. Not one of
Schmeat.
those New York or LA.
Incorporated. So yeah, it, is there any chance that in my travels there, I might see a woman running around with an L monogrammed on her sweater?
what?
If he's from there, I'll know by his response.
Ah, okay.
You'd have to. It's an old show reference, but
Gotcha.
it would be lost on younger generations, except someone specifically from the area where you know
Yeah, where that took
that would be
place.
familiar
Yeah,
because it was
that's fair enough. Close to Milwaukee.
yeah.
Boom, I got it.
No,
I'm
that's
awesome and
Ed.
smart.
That's Ed.
Oh fuck! Get damn it!
Damn it, Ed.
Damn it, Ed.
Or if nothing else, just give a nod, yes or no. Have you ever heard of Shots Brewery, which I don't believe is real? So
No,
not going to answer. I love it.
not gonna
Okay,
answer.
so
So yes.
I I know a thing or two about water. I'm drinking water, John. And keeping state secrets.
I know I did jump the gun. I was excited
What about what?
about the Milwaukee being right.
Right?
I
I
thought it was
mean,
gonna be in
how
Milwaukee.
about a little discretion? For the
I know. I
sake
was
of our
excited though.
subscribers. Listen, if a bunch of pizzas shows up to anybody's door, I disavow everything. I had nothing to do with
and I'm not
shit.
paying for it. So
Yeah, so you can just go ahead and refuse it. You can just
yeah,
refuse it.
I ain't paying for that shit.
Yeah, no. But anyway, so what do you say, John? Let's get the hell out of here for a while
Yeah,
you know, and finish this up. It was fun talking about beers and stuff. It beats the hell out of worrying about whether or not we're gonna have global peace or not because we're not, or will we, John? Global
yeah.
peace. It could be a thing. Make make love, not war. Is that a thing?
No,
No.
it's
All
not a
right.
thing.
Did you pop the chest?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah,
Was it exciting? Who
it was
who who
super
was
exciting.
who was the big
Sully
mamma
was
jamma?
obviously.
No
Sully was.
way.
Yeah.
That's why he talks so much, isn't it? That's
Yeah,
what
that's
he's
well.
doing.
That's why he was.
He's
That's why he's like interested in. You know, you gonna pop the chest tonight? Because
he's
I'm.
farming. He's
Yeah.
farming. He's
He
going from
is.
show to show farming.
He
That's
is
what this bastard's doing.
smart.
And this is your friend. This is, oh my God. Sully says the guy with the beard looks held against his will. Just nod your head on camera if you need help.
And then I did, and then he said, Lamau.
That's not a word, John.
It is a word.
It's an acronym. You can't do that way.
So he says, "Hey, I donate back to Freedom Scoop." Do you? Sweet.
I like that when that happens.
Yeah.
You know, and I wouldn't even be offended if you just donated to freedom.
Yeah, I'm fine with that too.
To our Emancipate the Constitution Fund. Maybe we should do that. Maybe we should just drum up a whole shit ton of money across the country, do like a Kickstarter, and we'll ask for an amendment to the Constitution that emancipates itself from the federal government.
That'd be cool.
Isn't that a thing? Could that be a thing?
Just be like, no, what we do is we got to get a compound, and then just be like, we secede from the union. Do a petition to
Okay,
secede from the
hold
union.
on. Those are completely different things.
I don't care. That's what I want to do.
That's. I mean, that
just be like, look, we're not gonna fuck with you. You don't fuck
what?
with us, and
You know
we're
what,
good.
John?
Like,
Before you start
you don't have
talking,
to help us.
before
we're not gonna.
No.
But we're not gonna pay any taxes to you either.
John,
John,
could you
fine.
just tell the people where to find us if they need to find us, please? And it's not at a fucking compound.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I get it.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you guys go down to the description, down here, right down below, we have a link to our Twitter, which is at the GenGapP. We have a link to our Discord server, which is super fun and awesome. I recommend you get in there. And then we got a link to freedomscoop.com, which we were just referencing a moment ago, where you can find ourselves and other such creators as Jay Edgar, who's in the chat right now, Stephen Ignoramus, Mr. RRC, who was in the chat earlier, Wyatt from Roundtable Decision, and the Freckles and Brit podcast over there as well. So make sure you do that. And while you're over there, make sure you buy some of our merch because we have shirts and mugs available. So those are pretty sweet. I think they came out pretty well. You can also put in the code GenGap at checkout, and you'll get 15% off of your purchase. So that's pretty awesome too.
Yeah, and on a happier note, Elephant Man says if we can have the right conversation, world peace will follow. So I would love to hear you expound on that sometime, as long as it doesn't have to be in the form of a manifesto.
Right.
I don't necessarily recommend that, but I do appreciate everybody coming out tonight and listening. We kind of went off on a ramble and a tangent a couple of times.
We do that all the time.
But I know John's tired.
Used to that by now.
I know John's tired, but I'm exhausted right now. I could probably fall. If you want, give me 30 seconds. I'll be out like a light if you want to watch
stay on
that.
stream and just like sleep.
Just snore.
Just do a sleepy boy stream.
My wife was so pissed off the other night, or the
Oh
other
my
day.
God.
I think it was yesterday because I had woke her up at 4:30 in the morning snoring so loud. She was like, I couldn't sleep. I even rolled you over and the whole 9 yards. And you just came back and I'm like, how do you feel bad? And I'm like, I feel bad. And I'm like, but why do I feel bad? I can't control that shit.
Right.
It's not my fault. But anyway, yeah, it could be fun. I could go to sleep right now. You want to race? Let's have a race and see who can fall asleep first.
Let's do it.
But anyway, thanks for coming out, folks. We'll be back again on Monday night for our regular show at 9:30. And then for our regular Shooting the Shit episode, and then we'll be back again, of course, next week at our regular time, 8:30. All of those times are at Eastral
Wow.
Eastral Standard Stupid.
Way to go.
Eastern Standard Time, the one and only true time zone.
That's right.
I told you I'm tired. What do you want? You want me to stay awake?
Yeah, you weren't fucking around.
I've been drinking a lot of water during the show, man. I think it's making me woozy.
I guess so.
I get drunk on water. What can I say?
Clearly.
But anyway, so have yourselves a great night, folks. We'll talk to you soon at one of those places that John pointed out. Just do us a favor. Stay safe. Be good. Be careful. Do all those things that, won't make a difference one way or the other. But until then, we'll talk to you later. Peace.
See you guys.
The war will begin.